Good morning and happy Easter. Today on Spotlight, the results of a brand new survey from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. What's the latest on how Michiganders feel about eating out and traveling during this COVID-19 pandemic? Justin Winslow, President and CEO of the association, will join us. We'll also check in with Oakland Press and Detroit music journalist Gary Graf about the annual Detroit Music Awards and what impact the coronavirus is having on Michigan's music scene. And later on our Sunday morning program, in Charles Anderson, President and CEO of the Detroit Urban League. I caught up with him a few days ago to talk about this year's Distinguished Warriors Tribute and Civil Rights Today. It's Easter Sunday, April the 4th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. Justin Winslow, thank you so much for kicking off our coverage on Spotlight today. The numbers for COVID-19 in Michigan are surging, and you've released a new survey. Are the two in sync in any way, shape, or form, and your concern right now?
I think it shows a change in the belief and the tone of the general public in Michigan. I'm not sure they felt as comfortable last fall as they feel right now, the last time we dealt with the surge. Obviously, no one wants to be here in early April. I think we all thought we would be moving past the time of double-digit positivity rating and towards a more prosperous spring and summer, which I still think is on the horizon. But right now, we're in that interim period, but the numbers still were more positive. This survey we put out to the general public in Michigan was done as these numbers were rising in late March. And the fact that 2/3 of Michiganders already feel comfortable or already have dined in a restaurant gives you a sense that they feel a little better than they did before. And I think a lot of that is that the older, more vulnerable portion of the population has been, by and large, had the opportunity to receive a vaccine.
You surveyed something like 600 people across the state. They want in-dining restaurants.
They do. I think they know how to mitigate risk themselves. We've been through this for a year now. Those who don't feel comfortable will not go. And that number is getting smaller, but there's still a portion of the population that doesn't feel comfortable, and that's okay.
How fearful are you that the governor is going to crack down again, clamp everything down with these numbers surging, or do you think she's going to take a different route now that people are getting vaccines in the arm?
That's a good question, and one we get flooded by our membership with by the minute, frankly, at this point. I take the governor at her word. She said repeatedly on both national, state, and local interviews in the last week that she does not believe that this spring surge is the same as the fall. That, to your point, a large portion of the population, 70% of those 65 and older, have already received a vaccine, and we are about to go into a very aggressive vaccination period in Michigan. So the sense that this will be somewhat short-lived and we will move past this seems to be more front of mind, as cautious as the administration is, and I think that's the right tact right now.
President Winslow, why do you think we're seeing this surge? I know you're not a medical expert, but you certainly have had to deal with this from the vantage point of your industry, a very important industry to this state that's been hard hit by this.
That's a good question. I think people always want a sort of a single variable answer, that this is the one reason that they're happening, or this is why things are happening here but not happening somewhere else. And I think it's a fickle vaccine that doesn't have a single answer. But there does seem to be a different type of surge this time, that it's a younger portion of the population, young students, high school students, and high school sports driving more of these numbers. I can tell you that we've been tracking this data very closely on the restaurant side. So far, only about 2% of the outbreak investigations are tied to restaurants. That's even lower than they were in the fall. And, I think a portion of that is, again, who feels comfortable and who doesn't go into a restaurant, and the safety precautions being put in place by those operating.
You found in your survey that people believe that hospitality workers should receive priority for the vaccines?
I do, and it had overwhelming support. Well over 90% of the population says, yeah, they're frontline workers. restaurant workers, hotel workers, they're dealing with the public every day. We should be prioritizing them. And I think people feel that for two reasons. One, it's just the right thing to do, and creating a safe environment for those working on the front lines is important. And another thing, frankly, I think it makes them feel more comfortable when their server or someone who's going to greet them at a hotel is someone who's been vaccinated, and they can feel comfortable knowing that that's true.
All right, we need to take a quick break. We'll come right back. Want to get your opinion on this tug of war between the legislature and the governor and how your industry is smack dab in the middle of it. We'll be right back. Stay with us. President Winslow, let me get your reaction in terms of, you talk about in your survey, you want the governor to take a more metric-driven plan towards trying to make these very important decisions about when to open things up and how much to open them up to. Drill down on that. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think what we've seen from a lot of other states is they tie decision-making to specific metrics. A lot of states use case positivity rates. Some make it a little more complicated and also use the hospitalization rate. But they make decisions based on where those trend lines are going. And if you cross a certain red line, one way or the other, some decisions of occupancy are made. And that kind of accountability helps this industry. It helps them make decisions. Should they be ordering more inventory? Should they be able to bring back some of their workforce that they would love to do, but don't know whether they can feel confident in doing that right now? I think a metric-driven approach gives them a little bit of certainty, even if that certainty means you're going backwards, which is unfortunately where we're going right now. They can make decisions that are more informed, and that helps them succeed, frankly, as a business.
So do you believe, and don't let me put words in your mouth, do you believe that the governor and the health department, which is up under her jurisdiction, have been too authoritarian in their approach to this, and that the legislature should be more involved? Certainly the GOP side of the legislature believe they should have more decision making in all of this.
I thought what the poll data really showed is, and you can feel it every day, that this industry sometimes feels like it's the political football in a battle between the executive office and the legislature, and we don't want to be there, frankly, right? There's too much actual solution-driven approach we need, right, out of this, and we're not getting. But 74% of people responded saying, we do think a metric-driven plan is appropriate. And that extends beyond any sort of partisan divide, which is good to see, because I think if we're going to go forward with these with a unilateral approach to decision making, there should be some metrics tied to it. We showed recently in a legislative testimony that someone with a 10,000 square foot ballroom and in a very sophisticated HVAC system can still only put 25 people in that entire room under current regulations. And the look of what a couple tables spread across 10,000 feet looks like, you kind of recognize the absurdity when there's not a more flexible plan put in place.
How many businesses have been sort of impacted by this in terms of closing? How many may not come back as a result of this, that they just cannot weather the storm?
Yeah, we stopped counting north of 3,000 restaurants earlier this year. So that's a sizable portion. I mean, it's a challenging industry anyways, right? There is turnover that exists in the restaurant industry in any given year, but it is many-fold over been worse over the last year. It's been a struggle.
All right, and in terms of lodging, because you wear two big hats here, not just the restaurants and the food industry, but also people who want to take vacations, what did your survey show?
Yeah, good news here. More than half of America, or more than half of Michiganders intend to take a vacation overnight in Michigan in the next 6 months. That's a good sign for our northern resorts, and frankly, anyone on the coastlines around here as well. And you see that pent up demand, right? It's a year and a half coming. So people want to get out there and they want to spend some time away from home.
I think the biggest day for the restaurant industry is Mother's Day. Is that correct? And that's right around the corner.
Yeah, it really is. Mother's Day is, for some restaurants, frankly, the make or break day, and people are making reservations well in advance. We're hopeful by the time we get to early May that we are going to be seeing some greater occupancy opportunities to meet that demand. But I'll tell you what, this industry has some challenges on the workforce side as well. So it's going to be capable to meet all that pent up demand that's coming. And maybe that's a question for the next time that we talk about this, Chuck.
Yeah, and I should say that as we get closer to Mother's Day, we're going to be talking to people who actually own and run some of these restaurants to be able to hear firsthand from them. Quick final question. If you could leave people who are watching this with one key piece of advice as they get ready for, I mean, we're dealing with Easter today, but other things are coming down the pipe. What advice would you give them to help your industry stay open?
Yeah, stay the course. I know no one wants to hear that message this long in, but for just a little bit longer, continue to wear the mask, continue to distance, continue to wash the hands and sanitize. It's going to help your local restaurant stay open and be able to continue to serve you, which I know they want to be able to do at a greater capacity. We need to get across this final hump, this final surge, so we can all get there and enjoy maybe an adult beverage, maybe a great meal together this summer.
All right, Justin Winslow, thank you so much for joining us, President and CEO of the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. We'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you, Chuck. Happy Easter.
Same to you. And coming up, we'll talk to Detroit music journalist, also with the Oakland Press, Gary Graf. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back to Spotlight. Joining me now is Gary Graf. He is the Detroit music journalist, with a capital T, also with the Oakland Press, and he writes for a whole lot of other folks as well. Wears a lot of different hats. Gary, good having you on Spotlight.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
It's our pleasure. Okay, there will be a Detroit Music Awards. It continues, but this will be the second year that it'll be virtual. Is that correct?
Right. Last year, we could kind of see the handwriting on the wall.
Right.
And we pivoted without a lot of time. We pivoted to a virtual show. This year, the handwriting was on the wall more in advance of that, so we had more time to prepare.
Sure. It will be 1 week from today on April the 11th, correct?
Right. 8 o'clock on Sunday, April 11th. Facebook Live via the Detroit Music Awards.
Gary, last year, you and everybody else had to do that quick pivot. You've had a year under your belt now. What did you learn from last year that helps you in terms of the virtual presentation for this year?
Really just, a lot on the technical end. We know how to put the show together better now, smoother now, although we were very happy with what we did last year, and we certainly got a large worldwide audience out of it. This year, I think one of the things
was
easy.
To interrupt you for a second,
Sure.
Was it bigger in terms of eyeballs than what you normally would get?
Exponentially. Usually we do a live show for 27 of the years. It was down at the Fillmore of Detroit, who were great partners, people we love. Last year we were on 6 continents, and I heard from artists who were getting contacted from people in Asia and Europe and Australia who might not have known of them otherwise. So that, as a silver lining, that was great. This year, Chuck, what was easier is everybody's in the virtual wheelhouse.
I'm curious to know what's going to be in this particular music show.
We cover all the bases with the awards themselves, as well as with the performances. So we present a certain number of awards during the show. We can't present them all. There's more than 70 of them. And then we cover the bases with the performances. So we'll have the Electric Six, a rock act, Keynote Sisters, who are Americana, Danny Croha, who's Mississippi blues done Detroit style, David McMurray and Blacklight Collective, who are jazz. We have Paul Stanley from Kiss gave us a special performance of a Motown song from his band Soul Station. Rob Stone doing country, and we also have a surprise performance from one of Detroit's all-time leading Grammy Award winners in the gospel field. So the Detroit Symphony Orchestra is part of it this year. So we shoot wide and we try to cover all the bases.
And if memory serves me correct, I think April is Jazz Appreciation Month. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Obviously we have great involvement from the Detroit Jazz Festival. They're a really good partner and a good supporter, so they're very involved in what we do.
Sure. Briefly tell me, what impact has COVID-19 had on the Detroit music scene?
I mean, people can't perform live, or if they can, it's in a much more limited fashion. So that's been damaging to the artists, to the venues. Obviously, everybody is waiting, hoping, praying that with the vaccinations, there will be live music this summer. In the meantime, Chuck, everybody's had to, necessity's the mother of invention, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's had to learn how to do their thing in the virtual world like we have.
Become more
With the
creative.
with the Detroit Music Awards, find a different way to do it, a different way to serve your audience, fuse different partnerships.
Real quick final question. If people want to tune in to this virtual presentation, what do they do?
They go to the Detroit Music Awards page on Facebook. You can also go to DetroitMusicAwards.net. That has all kinds of information, and we'll be able to steer you to the show there. Again, it debuts at 8 o'clock next Sunday, April 11th.
Keep the music rolling, keep the tunes and the town going, and we'll stay in touch with you.
Thanks a lot, Chuck.
All right, best of luck. And coming up, I'll check in with N. Charles Anderson, President and CEO of the Detroit Urban League, an interview I did with him a few days ago, talking about a very important event. We'll be right back. You are coming up on another big annual Urban League tribute, a salute to the distinguished warriors. Channel 7 has the pleasure of partnering with you this year. Awards come and go, but this one seems to have stood the test of time. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because it is an opportunity to recognize people in our community who've done so much in the area of human and civil rights. There are a lot of unsung heroes and sheroes. There's no shortage of people who deserve recognition. That's sometimes that it wasn't just John Lewis crossing the Edmund Pettit Bridge. There were so many people behind it. It wasn't just Martin Luther King himself, but there were so many other people behind him. It wasn't just Rosa Parks. There were other people who supported her. And so we have this opportunity to reach back into history and recognize individuals 65 and over who've done immeasurable service to our community in the area of human and civil rights. And it's a great opportunity. It is always a heartfelt, warm feeling when you find out about the great work of these individuals in greater detail.
Sure.
But also what I add to our pleasure and our privilege to have Channel 7 WXYZ helping us do this recognition this year.
Well, we're glad to do so.
These individuals were woke way back 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years ago. And it's amazing that we're still trying to jump over hurdles and cross barriers and break down barriers that we've been fighting to break down for years. I think when you think about this, Chuck, there's still the chance to say the first African American to do this or to do that. And just because we had an African American president in the United States, like Barack Obama, does not mean we've reached the pinnacle of success. That there's still more mountains to climb. There's still more work to do.
Sure. You're saluting and honoring 5 individuals from our community this year. Who are they, and why did you select these 5?
Well, again, a distinguished warrior, someone 65 plus who given immeasurable in the area of human and civil rights. And I want to honor Jane Garcia. It's one of those. She has more than 50 years of activism in the Hispanic community. She and her husband of 50 plus years have several children and grandchildren. Jane, a very serious activist in the community. She was the first Hispanic woman, I should say, to be vice chair of the Republican Party. She served city government in Detroit. She worked for LaSalle and some other Hispanic organizations. So Jane is a real advocate, so to speak, of community. Then there's the Honorable Sander Levin. Sander served his community in many, many ways. He's the older brother of Carl Levin, but Sandy was an outstanding congressman. And as you know, he talked the story about when he was 20, all the way back, and he's in his 80s now, but when he was 20, he worked with the Urban League and Dr. Cornigan, who led the Urban League for many years, and helping some activist young people who were traveling around. And we're honoring one of your own, Diana Lewis, a native of Philadelphia, and one of the interesting things I learned about Diana is that one of the reasons she got in front of the camera, she was filling in for Maya Angelou on a television program, their talk show. So that was great. Appeared in some movies, and the Rocky series. But Diana is an institution in the city of Detroit, where she did the bulk of her television career. And we know that she's extremely active in the community. She's given us so much, including Glenda Lewis, as an anchor at Channel 7. Dr. Geneva Williams, also a native of Jersey Shore. She went to school and college in Pennsylvania, but Geneva came to Detroit and worked for the predecessor agency, United Way, United Community Services. Then she worked for United Way. She have found City Connect, but she a consummate social worker. Geneva has been a real serious contributor to making life better for African American children and people as a social worker. And then our posthumous honoree is going to the late Dr. O'Neal D. Swanson. O'Neal came up in some very humble beginnings in Birmingham, Alabama, but he moved to Dayton, Ohio, graduated from Central State, spent some time in Alaska, went to mortuary school in Cincinnati, and graduated in '58, and came to Detroit and started the Swanson funeral business. But a lot of people probably don't know of all the behind-the-scenes things that O'Neal did to benefit the community, from his foundation, his special Christmas parties in Pontiac and Detroit, but the contributions that he gave to make Detroit a better community, a businessman, a father and grandfather. So he's worthy to be honored. And having passed away during the height of the coronavirus, the community has not had a chance to really recognize and honor and memorialize O'Neal Swanson the way we would want to. And I think honoring him as a distinguished warrior is a special opportunity for us. We actually tried to honor O'Neal while he was still living. And O'Neal kept telling me that my work is not done. I still got work to do. He would still be saying that today. But he was a great individual and a great contributor to our community.
Thank you so much. The key date is April the 8th. We'll make sure all the information is on the screen. Thanks so much. Good talking to you, and stay safe out there. Special thanks to all of my guests today. Don't forget the Distinguished Warriors Tribute on Thursday, April 8th. Our very own Diana Lewis is one of the honorees, and the Detroit Music Awards on the 11th. I'm Chuck Stokes. Have a great week.